Hi everybody, my name is Chris Brown. I'm the Chicago Public Library Commissioner, and welcome to our Whitney Young Branch Library in Chatham. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you Mayor Lightfoot for your leadership and whole government approach to city safety, which you can see by everyone gathered here. This approach is an investment and an acknowledgement that we all have a role to play in providing youth with opportunities and with safe spaces in Chicago, especially over these summer months. Libraries provide safe and welcoming spaces for all, and we stand here today with our partners committed to being an ongoing part of the solution in making the city a safer place. Every day, our libraries welcome young people, teens, families, seniors. Even during the height of the pandemic, we were welcoming up to 300,000 visitors every day. And thanks to the Whitney Young Branch and the dedication of our talented manager, Mitchell Smith, and team, we're welcoming them here as well. In preparation for each summer, the city has been convening departments and community stakeholders like our libraries to get us at the virtual table together to collaborate on neighborhood safety efforts. And our city agencies and partners have been investing in solutions that ensure resources and opportunities are going to our youth over the summer. It's been inspiring to see so many agencies collaborating and working together. And for instance, this holiday weekend at our own Whitney Young branch here at this library, we're going to be offering extended hours tomorrow until 7 p.m. as we partner with the Chicago Parks District and their Rolling Rec to offer combined opportunities to keep youth engaged and having fun and safe into the evening hours. And that's really only the beginning. Our branches and U-Media teams are working to make sure that our youth have planned summer after-school programming in our neighborhoods. There's other great examples of recent cross-agency collaborations, like the wonderful things we've been doing with the park districts, with public schools, and with public schools and other key partners at our new Legler Regional Library. One that I'm especially proud of is our new Market Days program, offering Westside communities fresh produce every third Saturday in partnership with Greater Chicago Food Depository. We've also committed to supporting and joining partner initiatives led by agencies like the Park District and their summer kickback series as they work with community-based organizations to hire teens to plan events and promote vaccinations. And that's thanks to our Amazon sponsor. As Chicago continues to open up, our library's opportunities for youth are increasing. This summer, the library is going to be the place to connect with opportunities, as all of our staff in our 81 locations are going to be trained as My Chi, My Future navigators, connecting youth with opportunities. And at the library, we'll also have over 200 paid jobs, 50 paid interns, where youth will be able to serve as My Chi, My Future ambassadors, connecting their peers with opportunities. Teens right here in Chatham will have a unique opportunity as our U-Media teens and our staff are going to be working with artists on a mural here at our Whitney Young Library, thanks to funding from the Library Foundation. Libraries are community hubs and heartbeats of our neighborhoods, which means that the people of Chicago are key to us achieving our mission, and just as key is their safety. We're all responsible for a safer Chicago. And so I'd like to thank Mayor Lightfoot for your leadership, for getting the city to the table to address safety with urgency, and for fostering a culture of collaboration. And on that note, it's my honor to introduce our Chicago Mayor, Mayor Lightfoot.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be on the South Side here in Chatham. I want to thank Commissioner Brown of our great Chicago Public Library, which is such an important community asset. 80 library branches across our 77 communities, and each one of them a jewel and a treasure in the neighborhood. So thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the great team at the Chicago Public Library. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. We are here today to discuss our new whole-of-government approach to public safety, one that doesn't just rely upon law enforcement alone. Instead, we acknowledge and believe that to make neighborhoods both safe and vibrant, we must use data. We must engage and support local residents, and we must give our young people hope. And I'm pleased to be joined by a range of folks today, not the least of which is Office of Emergency Management Communications Executive Director Rich Gaitis, Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Commissioner Rosa Escareno, Chicago Park District Superintendent Mike Kelly, of course, Chicago Police Department Superintendent David Brown, Chicago Fire Department Assistant Deputy Chief Paramedic Monica Porter, Deputy Chief Ernie Cato from the west side, Deputy Chief Larry Snelling from the south side, New Life Covenant Southeast Pastor John Hanna, Build Chicago Director of Community Engagement and Strategic Partnerships Bradley Johnson, UConn Executive Director of Violence Prevention Services Francisco Perez, Christina Hamilton, Executive Director of the Centers for New Horizons, and many people who are going to be actively engaged in helping our communities be safe. Thank you all so much for being here. Here in Chicago, Memorial Day weekend has long served as our way of turning the chapter on spring and welcoming in a summer full of fun and outdoor activities. As city leaders, it's our responsibility to not only ensure that there are fun outdoor activities for our residents to engage in, but also ensure that they are safe doing so. Warm weather means more and more people out and about, and making it likely that some of our residents, especially our young people, might find themselves caught up in a difficult or challenging circumstance, making decisions that not only endanger themselves, but other residents around them. Chicago, unfortunately, has an incredibly painful history with violence, especially during the summer. We've seen far too many times what happens when young people and their families don't have access to opportunity within their own neighborhoods. Disinvestment deepens, cycles of poverty continue, hope disappears, and unfortunately, violent crime may increase. Since I've been mayor, we have worked diligently to change this history in Chicago. Recall that in 2019, we ended the year with under 500 homicides for the first time in years. And then COVID hit. And among the many terrible consequences of this deadly virus is it exacerbated the violence here in Chicago and in many cities across the country. But we owe it to all of our residents in every neighborhood to bring peace and vibrancy back. Accomplishing this mission, we know, is not easy, nor can it be done alone. But we have an obligation to continue this fight literally for our residents' lives. And making this summer, the summer we've all been waiting for after the year that we've just endured, we need to make this the safest one yet to make significant progress. That's why we've convened government, community, and faith partners here today to roll out the SummerSafety strategy, our city's latest effort to create strong, all-city response to public safety. And this strategy, which has been in the works for weeks, differs from past years, and it is truly a whole-of-government approach, driven by data and allegiance with important community partners. Violence is an issue that impacts our communities, our local economies, and really the psyche of our entire city, how we see ourselves and how others see us. Meaning that we need, as leaders from every different sector, to come together and co-create holistic interventions and solutions that really get at the root causes of violence. And as you can see by the sheer number of leaders we have here today, the SummerSafety strategy aims to do just that. But we've called this before, and we know that every part of government has to step up and do its part. And what does this approach actually look like on the ground for residents, for those who are most impacted? Well, let me tell you. As part of this strategy, we've identified the 15 most violent beats based upon data collected through the summers of 2018, 2019, and 2020. And for those of you who are not familiar with police parlance, the city is divided up into 22 geographic districts, which in those districts, we have certain neighborhoods and blocks that are segmented into beats. So these 15 beats are ones that we know are going to be the most challenged based upon historical crime trends. Historically, these 15 areas account for over 50% of the violence in our city. So if we can make a meaningful difference in these areas, we will make a meaningful difference in the entirety of public safety across our whole city. So we've grouped these beats into 4 zones, 2 on the south side, 2 on the west side. The first zone is comprised of Austin, North Lawndale, and West Garfield. The second zone is West Garfield Park and West Humboldt Park. The third is Auburn Gresham and Greater Grand Crossing. And the fourth is Roland, South Chicago, and South Shore. In each zone, we did a deep dive to understand the conditions on the ground, the assets and opportunities. We wanted to be very clear-eyed about the challenges so that we could forge realistic but comprehensive sets of interventions in each of these zones. And then we ask all of our departments to assign personnel to each of the zones to coordinate services, rapid response, and programming. And when I say each of our departments, I don't just mean the fire department, the police department, OEMC. I mean the libraries, the parks, CPS, DFSS, Chicago Department of Public Health. That's what I mean when I talk about a whole of government approach. And then we ask, after that, we connected and will continue to connect with community partners and faith leaders to co-create approaches to address violence, breaking down incidents literally at the block level to analyze violence trends and coordinate collective responses, and identifying gaps and needs that are necessary to support this work through meetings for each zone multiple times a day. Each day of the week is assigned a different zone with a different team ready to respond both daily and in rapid response format should crises emerge. All these groups then feed up to our Summer Operations Center, which manages the city's response to violence every week over the summer, thus making our fight against violence a truly collaborative, all-hands-on-deck effort. This is exactly how public safety is supposed to work. Not law enforcement alone. We know that that's a failed approach. And not community feeling like they have no supports. We have to be united together if we're going to be successful. And as a result of this approach, we've already gotten started. We've got community organizations hosting events for young people to connect and have fun with peers, and you'll hear more about that. Providing young people with meaningful, positive connections in their neighborhoods is a key part of the summer safety strategy. Our Department of Family and Support Services will be encouraging the myriad of delegate agencies that they have contracts with to participate in different activities across these zones. And some of their partners, like Street Outreach Services, like Francisco Perez and UConn, as well as trauma supports and mental health services, will also be deployed across these zones. Representatives from our libraries, as you heard, will be present at events starting this weekend and throughout the summer to connect with community members and highlight the programming that they have in store, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. CPD, the Department of Streets and Sanitation, the Department of Water Management, and CDOT are bringing back and aligning Operation Clean initiative with summer safety strategy to improve the quality of life for residents by fixing broken streetlights and potholes, repairing damaged buildings, removing unwanted graffiti, and cleaning empty lots. The Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection has also prioritized these same 15 beats and business districts targeted by the summer safety strategy, and has teams available on the weekends late at night to check up on businesses. The Park District is bringing back its popular and I think greatly successful rolling rec activity van to offer fun for families across a number of parks within these zones we've identified, and are bringing out additional staff to host even more weekends. And I just got to give a special shout out to Mike Kelly and also to Alonzo, who has been tremendous in this work. The list really goes on and on, but I hope you get this point. We are flooding these zones with resources and supports for families, for young people, so that there are meaningful and productive activities at their fingertips the entire summer, particularly at night and on the weekends when we see the most challenges with violence. A cohesive list of these events will be put up on community calendars, which will be available every week and updated on a weekly basis. All of these summer safety strategy initiatives build on the additional ongoing citywide programming we have in store this summer. For example, for our Open Chicago initiative, we're putting on a number of public space activations and events, reopening some of our most iconic venues and expanding outdoor dining across the city in business and throughout the summer and fall. Through our Rediscover Chicago campaign, we've highlighted the over 200,000 opportunities we have in store for young people this summer under the My Shy, My Future umbrella and Chicago Public Schools. This includes paid summer job opportunities through initiatives like One Summer Chicago, which will run through July 5th and August 13th of this year, and will include remote and socially distanced, as well as in-person job and life skills training for young people ages 14 to 24. Now again, these applications are open just till June 11th. If you haven't applied, you must do so. Go to OneSummerChicago.org. That's OneSummerChicago.org. This is for young people 14 to 24 to apply. Also, if you want to check out the range of opportunities, go to MyShyMyFuture.org, MyShyMyFuture.org. Every single one of these initiatives, including the summer safety strategy, will help us target the root causes of violence in our community, and that is an absence, fundamentally, of hope. We want to build hope and opportunity in every community across the city, but particularly those most plagued by violence. And what is more, we are working with our departments and community partners about how to be better partners, to build capacity so we all take ownership of public safety, as Commissioner Brown said. Now, I want to do one more thing before I turn to Superintendent Brown. I want to take a moment to talk about a different form of violence that is every bit as pernicious but doesn't get the kind of coverage, and that's gender-based violence. The gender-based violence crisis in this city is happening in the same communities that we're talking about today. And we know that violence begins at home, that the impact of experiencing or witnessing violence, particularly our young people, can be devastating for a lifetime. We cannot continue to ignore this problem. We've got to bring it to the light. That's why the summer safety strategy also builds off of ongoing initiatives we've launched to address gender-based violence and address it once and for all. For example, in February 2020, which seems like a very long time ago, we launched the city's first Gender-Based Violence Advisory Council, which brought together community-based organizations, city departments, and sister agencies, and survivors to develop budget recommendations for 2022 and beyond, as well as citywide strategic plan to holistically address gender-based violence through a whole-of-government approach again. By the end of the summer, my team and I will release the city's first strategic plan to address gender-based violence, which will reduce harm and violence in homes and communities throughout our city, reduce fear and increase safety for our residents, and increase gender and racial equity, an intersection that simply cannot be ignored when we are addressing violence in communities. Furthermore, in this fiscal year, the city invested $9.5 million in services for survivors of domestic violence, people who cause harm, and young people impacted by gender-based violence. My office in CPD received a federal grant from the Office of Violence Against Women in 2020 to improve CPD's response to gender-based violence. And just this week, my team, along with CPD, launched a victimization dashboard that helps us to better understand not only homicides and gun violence, but other violent crimes, such as domestic violence and sexual assault. This is online. You can use it interactively. It's updated, and you can go from community to community to understand what's happening on the ground around violence in our city. Folks, it's no longer simply enough to say that we want to create a safer Chicago. We must be intentional about doing just that and take bold and transformative action, as well as work with leaders like the ones that are here in the room today to make sure that we are understanding the needs of community at the grassroots level and then building a strategy to help support communities in need. I want to thank every single partner who's here with us today, but also those who are part of this summer safety strategy, who have been doing the hard work for years. I want you to know that as your mayor, we will always continue our work to partner and support you in these efforts because we all need each other. So thanks for everyone who's here today. Thanks for the work that's to come. And we look forward to having the safest summer in the history of the city of Chicago. Yes, it's a challenge, but we are up to this challenge and we can meet it if we work cooperatively together. And with that, I bring Superintendent Brown to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. It's great to see many of our city and community partners here today before what is a very important weekend in our city. As Chicago continues to reopen and more residents and visitors are out and about enjoying everything our city has to offer, know that Chicago police officers will be out in the communities ensuring the safety of residents over the holiday. I want to thank all of our officers and their families for their sacrifice and dedication to the people of Chicago. The Summer Operations Center is in operation again this summer, which will allow CPD and OMC personnel to monitor activities citywide and quickly deploy resources to incidents as they occur. CPD has conducted multiple tabletop exercises to logistically plan for the summer and make sure we are ready. Using data-informed policing to identify areas of higher crime, as the mayor mentioned, also using smart policing technology in our strategic decisions rooms and our area technology center rooms to monitor and track activity. Our whole of government approach, coordinating with other city departments and other agencies to ensure appropriate deployment of resources, to include street outreach and violence interrupters. CPD has also made working with grassroots organizations and community leaders a top priority throughout the year, as together we create community around our young people. Within CPD, a new neighborhood policing initiative. Our district coordinating officers have just graduated another class, so now that we are in with our MPI DCO program in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 15th, and 25th districts with this program, we will work to prevent crime with this program by working directly with residents to build trust and solve quality of life problems that can lead to crime. As the mayor said, this is an all hands on deck, whole of government brought to bear on violent crime. If you see something, say something, whether it's a uniformed officer or by calling 911 or submitting a tip anonymously to cpdtip.com. Please stay safe, have fun over the holiday, but know that the Chicago police officers will be serving you and this community with everything they have, risking all to protect you. I will now turn everything over to Francisco Perez with UCAN. Francisco?
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Mayor, for the promotion, Executive Director, but I'm actually an Associate Vice President of the VIP, Violence Intervention Prevention Services Program at UCAN. UCAN is a 152-year-old agency, been around since President Lincoln. We originally started out as a orphanage, but over the years we've expanded into other things like violence prevention, residential facilities, job placement, counseling, et cetera, et cetera. You know, standing, I was listening to the mayor, and I thought to myself, I haven't seen this kind of movement since Harold Washington. Thank you for your leadership. That says a lot. Getting together with the not-for-profit sector, getting together with the city, getting together with the police department. And by the way, my guys, Deputy Chief Cato, thank you for your service. Commander Calderon, he's not here, the 10th District, thank him for his service. And McKinnon, the 11th District, those are powerful individuals in our community, and we're glad we have them there. Now, The strategy we're going to embark on is all of us working together. We've already started meeting on a daily basis. It feels like a daily basis. You got us meeting 3 times a week. Strategizing with these various departments to try to come up with ideas on how to stem the violence in the hardest hit areas that the mayor talked about. As of today, my particular organization is one of 23 organizations. My organization, known as, the 23 organizations known as Community Partnering for Peace, are going to be hitting the bricks. My organization is going to be out there some 21 hours per day, 7 days per week, trying to get to the bottom of trying on the front end to stop violence and on the back end, stopping retaliation when it does occur. It is important that we provide services to the individuals and the communities that are being devastated by the violence. As the mayor indicated, the entire city is not suffering from violence. Although it may look like it because of the stats, there are certain areas that drive the numbers in the city. If we can get a handle on those areas, we can drop down those numbers. You know, I've been here all my life in Chicago, and every year I see the devastation that's going on, both on the victim side as well as the perpetrator side, because that's causing devastation to that family when they have to pay the consequences. We as adults, we have to get together and say, basta, enough is enough. And we got to invest not only on the back end, being reactive, but on the front end, as the mayor is doing, being proactive if we're going to get a handle on this. It costs too much, and forgive me for being French, damn money to be spending on being reactive than being proactive. With that being said, I'm going to slide over to Spanish. Mi nombre es Francisco Pérez. Soy uno de los directos en UCAN, una agencia que está trabajando casi más de 152 años de cuando estaba el presidente Abraham Lincoln. Hoy nosotros somos una parte de mucha comunidad, programas de la comunidad que están trabajando a bajar la violencia. Vamos a estar trabajando 7 días a la semana, casi 21 horas al día, desde las 4 de la tarde hasta las 12, desde las 6 de la tarde hasta las 2, desde las 10 de la noche hasta las 6 de la mañana. ¿Por qué tan tarde? Porque la data le dice a nosotros que en esa hora son que mucho de la violencia está pasando. ¿Okay? Nosotros somos parte, UCAN, de 22 otras organizaciones que se llama el Institute for Nonviolence, the Alliance of Local Service Organizations, Breakthrough, New Life Ministries, Aclovis, toda esa agencia, en 23 de nosotros estamos trabajando juntos a bajar la violencia en la parte de la ciudad donde está la violencia acabando con los jóvenes en la comunidad. Voy a terminar con una cosa también. I'm going to finish with one thing that you mentioned about gender-based violence. In the North Lawndale community, last month, we saw some 14 victims of violence. 5 of them were women. That seems to be an ongoing problem, especially when the weather changes. En la comunidad que yo trabajo, había 14 víctimas de la violencia el mes pasado. 5 de esas personas eran mujeres. Eso está pasando más y más, que las mujeres están sufriendo la violencia también. Tenemos que hacer algo sobre esto. Para Telemundo y la otra gente que están aquí de español, si quieren hablar después de esto, estoy aquí, ¿ok? For those of you from the Spanish meeting, if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll be more than happy. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Mayor, and thank you for your service for us.
Good afternoon. I'm Krista Hamilton. I am the CEO and Executive Director of Centers for New Horizons. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with Mayor Lightfoot and the city to prevent violence. For the last 50 years, Centers for New Horizons has been working hard to provide critical social services to the residents of Chicago, most intimately on the south side of Chicago. We are well aware of the challenges that we are faced with yearly during Memorial Day weekend. Considering that, and as a partner, we want to ensure that we are aligned with the efforts of the city that the city will be employing this weekend to address violence. Centers for New Horizons has received funding from the City of Chicago and other partners to provide victim services. Victim services funding allows us to provide comprehensive trauma-informed services for victims of violence and their families. This includes incident response, supporting impacted individuals through one-on-one interactions, support groups, and other resource coordinations to get those individuals out of crisis. We also will be participating in the SummerSafety strategy meetings with community groups and city partners to better address violence in high priority areas. In addition to victim services, Centers for New Horizons also has a plethora of other programs to assist perpetrators of violence. So not only are we assisting those victims, many times the victims and the perpetrators can be the same people. So we'll also be implementing this summer lots of programs to encourage those individuals to join our services. Our staff will be on call this weekend to support the city as needed. However, we are hopeful that this weekend will be a peaceful weekend for everyone. Thank you. I'll bring to the podium Rich Gaitis, OEMC.
Thank you, Krista. And good afternoon. I'm Rich Gaitis, Executive Director of the Chicago Office of Emergency Management and Communications. Memorial Day is not just a holiday for barbecues and celebrations. For many families, it is a time of remembrance for lost loved ones in service to their country. I encourage everyone to take time to honor and remember their sacrifice. As Chicagoans get ready to enjoy a 3-day holiday weekend and the unofficial start of summer in Chicago, we want to remind everyone to do so safely. Public safety is our #1 priority, and the city remains ready to respond to all public safety hazards. As part of Mayor Lightfoot's all-hands-on-deck efforts to protect residents and communities citywide, OEMC and the Chicago Police Department will once again activate the Summer Operations Center, the SOC, located at OEMC. The SOC provides strategic oversight and coordinated citywide deployment of public safety personnel and assets to enhance our ongoing collaborative efforts around violence reduction. The SOC rolled out in early May with full activation this weekend and continuing through the summer with the Chicago Police Department, OEMC, as well as key city agencies and partners. Each weekend throughout the activation, we will be conducting multiple daily calls to facilitate information sharing citywide with all necessary agencies. To further enhance our efforts, OEMC has also activated the Emergency Operations Center to support the SOC over the 3-day holiday weekend to include representatives from additional city departments and agencies. The EOC will support citywide coordination of service requests, deployed assets, and the overall collaboration efforts with local, state, and federal agencies, including Mayor's Office, Chicago Police Department, Chicago Fire Department, Department of Street and Sanitation, Chicago Department of Transportation, Department of Water Management, Assets, Information and Services, Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, Chicago Transit Authority, Chicago Public Schools, Cook County Sheriff's Office, Public-Private Task Force, Illinois State Police, and National Guard. We'll make every effort on behalf of the city to keep residents and visitors safe. We want everyone to know they have a role to play here as well. We remind everyone, if you see something, say something. The public is encouraged to be aware of their surroundings and report suspicious activity posing an immediate threat by calling 911. Additionally, as beaches open and more people gather on the lakefront, it's important to know your location when calling 911 to report an incident. Chicago location identifiers or pole markers serve as an additional tool for emergency personnel and the public to provide their exact locations for a rapid response. The green aluminum pole markers with letters and numbers based on the city addresses is geocoded system can be found on light poles in areas along the lakefront in Grant Park and Lakeshore Drive. The city will have resources in place to monitor activities this summer. As always, OEMC urges residents to be cognizant of threatening weather conditions, emergency situations, and to heed messages and alerts from officials. For residents and businesses, there are a number of ways to receive emergency alerts from OEMC through Notify Chicago and ShyBiz. To receive Notify Chicago text and email alerts, residents can subscribe at notifychicago.org. The ShyBiz alert is specifically for Chicago businesses, and the easiest way for businesses to sign up is by texting ShyBiz to 67283. I want to wish everyone a safe and enjoyable holiday weekend. Mayor, thank you.
I also want to acknowledge Leo Schmitz, who I'm calling chief of the Sheriff's Police. The Sheriff Dart and his team have been absolutely invaluable partners for the city for years, and particularly over these last couple years. So I want to make sure that we give due acknowledgement to them. I also want to acknowledge John O'Malley, our Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, who is also on point here today and happy to take your questions.
Hi. First question. This is not the first time that we've heard of the city's all-hands-on-deck approach to summer violence. Why do you think that this approach this time around is going to make a bigger difference?
Well, I don't know what you've heard before, but this is different in my 20-plus years knowledge of city government. The difference is this. One is we're using data to really inform the strategy. That's not new. But we're honing in on those areas of the city that have both historically been most challenged by violence, and we're bringing everyone to the table. Our historical approach as a city prior to the time that I became mayor is just relying upon the Chicago Police Department and hoping for the best. That's not what we do. We broke down those barriers, brought together a public safety cabinet really during my transition. But in thinking about summer safety this year, which really those conversations started at least as early as January, we talked about how we can do more. Because what we were finding is when the police department would clear an area, so say for example, an open air drug market, and they'd find support from other city partners, the minute they were gone, the trouble came back. So we knew that what we needed to do differently is really help the community by building capacity in these areas. And by doing that, really focusing on what's in these different beats. So the discussions have been, okay, if you look at this block, who lives there? Who are the community stakeholders? How can we engage them? How many young people live in that area? Are they connected up with meaningful activities? So there's been a very different granular conversation, bringing in not only city resources, but community resources in a way to help support these neighborhoods. Now, this is the first time we're doing this. We're going to be monitoring our progress throughout the course of the summer. This work is going to be feeding up through the Summer Operations Center. Will be changes and be nimble. We have a capacity to respond to emergencies. But it's a kind of unity, a purpose of people on the ground in these areas that are most challenged that I haven't seen, and I've been around city government for quite some time.
A couple questions for the superintendent. Yeah. For these 15 districts, these four that are
15 beats. Yeah, go
15
ahead.
beats that are organized in 4 groups. Does that mean there's going to be more officers specifically on the streets in their?
So we're highlighting these 15 beats, but the same type of plan is going to happen throughout the city in every beat, in every district, every neighborhood throughout the city. This is just going to be a hyper focus for resources for sustainability and capacity. Given the data points us to this area of the city being a large percentage of the total violent crime that happens, this is really ground zero for success. And the greatest impact will happen here because we have the density to be able to penetrate what the community needs. Instead of it being led by law enforcement, it really is a whole of government approach to really bear down on these communities to ensure that we give the community what it needs to be able to sustain itself in a safe manner.
Quick off-topic question for you, Officer.
So we just finished with the on-topic for other reporters before we go off-topic. Thanks. Oh, sorry, Mayor. Yeah.
Mayor, if we could, what makes you think that the people who are driving the violence are going to take advantage of these services and opportunities and put down the guns?
Well, some will, some won't. But I think if we don't give our young men, in particular who are the drivers of violence, real hope and opportunity, then they won't. I don't want our young people to believe that their destiny is preordained. If we open up even a few eyes to opportunities by getting them a job, by getting them a mentor, by taking them off the street, by providing them with mental health services, all the things that we know, we call them euphemistically wraparound services, but really what's about is building, I think, a set of adult leaders and mentors and ecosystem around our young people to help support them and support their families. We know that based upon the work that's been done here in Chicago and other instances, but across the country, that these are the kind of programmatic interventions that actually work. Will we convince every single person out there who has a gun now to put down their guns? No. But do we need to start, and do we need to be very concentrated and focused to provide those opportunities, to make them think twice before they pick up a gun to solve petty disputes? Absolutely. And bringing this kind of intensive focus to help support their families as well. This is what this is really about.
And how will you measure, what will be the benchmarks for measuring if this is actually working?
Well, that's why I said we are measuring this literally week by week to make sure that we are understanding what the conditions are on the ground. And as Francisco said, I think the measure of success is, do we stop the retaliatory shootings, but do we reach these young people, get them into productive programming? So we will be looking at metrics just as we do along the way. How many people do we get registered? How many people in neighborhoods are we touching? Those are the kind of metrics that we're going to be looking at. Again, this is a new approach, so we're kind of building it as we go. But even the work that's been done over the last few weeks is exciting because we're seeing people engaging in conversations that they've done separately, but in a siloed way. We're now bringing that together, and a lot of innovative, creative ideas have already bubbled up as a consequence. Go ahead.
For the mayor and the soup. Mayor, you said earlier we look forward to having the safest summer in the history of Chicago. Last year, we had the most homicides in the city of Chicago as we've had in the last 20 years on record. How do you square those two things?
That's not accurate.
That's actually not accurate.
That's since 2016. It was lower than 2016. It's only 40.
The most, 2016 was lower.
No, sir.
No,
2020
not at
was-
all.
No, that's not correct, sir.
accurate.
Okay, can you
So,
speak?
look, we will all acknowledge we did not have the kind of summer that we wanted to have. The homicide and the shooting numbers were much higher. This is a phenomenon, unfortunately, that's happened all across the country. New York, LA, St. Louis, Atlanta, DC, every major city over this last pandemic year has seen a significant increase in violence. That's why we're looking at new approaches, new interventions, so that we can drive those numbers down.
Question for the superintendent. In the past, you've said that you're changing shifts around, you're extending hours for your officers and taking away some of the days off. Going into the summer, what kind of toll do you think that's going to take on your officers, and do you think you can sustain yourself through the summer given that pace that you've set?
We've had this conversation internally. I'm just going to share kind of how we've had this dialogue. It's for the officers that have to come to work. They're not scheduled to be off during the holidays. Do they have enough support? Do they have enough officers at work to ensure that they come to work in a safe manner? It is the age-old question, am I my brothers and sisters' keeper during the most violent times of the city? And the answer is a resounding yes, I am. That the sacrifices we have to make as law enforcement is to serve this community. Oftentimes that means very difficult decisions about canceling off days and extending tours. We don't do that lightly. But we want to ensure that our officers are safe as well as the communities are safe. That sometimes means bringing more officers in to work rather than fewer.
And a question is part of the safety approach for your officers a decision to move away from the open radio scanner system to a digital encrypted system that is going to be employed or might be employed? If so, explain the logic behind that and the timeline you might be using.
So I don't know what that means, but let me try to take a guess that, our radio systems are encrypted. We likely are doing more of encryption just so that we don't have scanners interrupting radio transmissions that might be a life safety or life-threatening communication that has to happen over the radio. I think the second part of your question is, as we go forward with the utilization of technology to help us do our job, the answer is yes. That as technology advances, we want to leverage technology to make sure we do the job in the safest manner possible.
Will the media be able to hear the scanner traffic, or will that be excluded?
So it's not necessarily what you hear, it's whether you can interrupt the radio transmissions. I want to make clear that being able to key a scanner and interrupt a radio transmission that might be a life-threatening communication is something that we have to ensure doesn't happen.
So the data that I was referencing earlier that you took issue with was about the months in the summer, June, July, and August. The homicide rates in the city of Chicago last summer were higher than any summer since 2000, as far back as the data goes that we were able to find.
Yeah, so there's statistics and then there's damn statistics. So you just parsed out 3 months.
Well, we're talking about summer here today.
Okay, let me answer. You ask and let me answer.
Please.
So the answer is last year was a violent year. One homicide is one too many, but it was lower than 2016's. That's still not satisfactory. Like, if one is one too many, any part of the year where we have increased violence is something that we have a sense of urgency around. And it's really, this whole of government approach is a response to it. It's not more law enforcement capacity, it's bringing more partners in to address some of the root causes of violence. Less, if you just want to say, well, let's lock everybody up, we know from the 80s that that didn't work, and it's not going to work. And so this whole of government approach is a long time coming. I'm excited about having partners outside of law enforcement able to really penetrate the root causes of violence.
So, Mayor, are you able to talk about that at all? I mean, last year's summer months, we're here today talking about summer. I don't mean to be isolating, but that is the topic on the table today. Last year's homicide numbers were the worst in 20 years. This summer, you're promising the safest summer in Chicago.
No, let's be clear. Okay, this isn't about playing gotcha. So let's be clear. Okay, we're talking about people's lives, so let's not trivialize it. Every single person here, every single person who cares about life in the city understands that we are facing challenges. The same challenges that residents and mayors and police chiefs all across the country are facing. Violence in our country has gone up, period. Everyone, everywhere is challenged. So what our goal is to make this summer safe. Can I sit here and promise you that that's what's going to happen at the end of the summer? No, of course not, and you know that. So don't characterize my words in any way that I didn't say. What I said is our goal is to have a very safe summer by using these exact techniques to try to do that. We will see what the future holds. But all of us, and you included if you live in the city, have some responsibility for summer safety. That's what I said. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Rolled out a big plan yesterday. Love to.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to talk about that, but we're here today to kind of talk about summer safety. We did roll out a plan. We're excited about it. I think it's a plan that makes some sense. But the bottom line here is two things. One is, I think we all acknowledge the fact that it's way past time for this city to acknowledge our founder, DeSable and his wife, Kitty Hawa. Way past time. The question is, what is the best way for us to do that? One of the things that I'm concerned about as a student of history, and not somebody who is a native Chicagoan, but somebody who's been here for 30 plus years, we don't know our history here in this city. And worse, our children don't know our history. So what's important for us is when we're thinking about ways in which we acknowledge someone as important as our founder, is to make sure that we are ingraining into our schools, into our programs, ways in which we honor the history and teach people about our past. So our plan is number one, have permanent fixtures that honor DeSable and Kitty Hawa from DeSable Park in Lake Michigan all the way west to where the confluence, where the rivers come together, and to have year-round programming to draw not only tourists but Chicago residents to educate them about DeSable. That is the crux of the plan, and we'll talk more about it in the coming days. Thank you all.